first thing I want to do is I want to make sure everybody can hear me. So if you do me a favor, if you would go to your control panel and raise your hand so I know you can hear me, I would greatly appreciate that. That way I'll know you can actually hear me, and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to double check and make sure everybody can hear me. All right, I see everybody raising their hand. That's always a good sign. So we are ready to go. And remember, the goal of these coaching calls each and every month is to keep you moving forward so that you really learn, or you really use what you learned at the Marketing Mastery Seminar. And it's so important that you just keep taking regular, consistent little steps. If you take regular, consistent little steps week in and week out, you cannot believe the progress you will make over time. The other thing is, I want to make sure that you don't feel isolated. So many times agents leave the seminar, they get back to their offices, and they say, well, you know, I feel like I was the only one doing something. A few people went, but nobody was really applying it. And I want you to realize that there's lots of people out there that are struggling to build a marketing-driven real estate business. You aren't alone, and we want to make sure that you understand that you have a team of support here at Hobbs Herder. Next, I want to make sure that you're holding yourself accountable so that the goals that you've set for yourself truly become a reality. Finally, I want to make sure that you're getting new ideas on a regular basis so that you're always moving forward and progressing. So today, I have a very special webinar for you. We have Tony Slowik from Austin, Texas with us. And Tony is going to tell us a little bit about some of the things that he's been doing. I'm going to call this sort of a day in the marketing life of Realtor Tony. And Tony is a wonderful realtor from Austin, Texas. He's with Sky Realty. This is his personal brochure. And he recently came to the seminar and started executing this expired and for sale by owner program. And these are basically the checklists, and he's modified these. This is the same basic version of these that you can get at the download site. And what I want you to do is use these tools because they work so incredibly well. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, welcome Tony. Tony, are you there?
I'm here, Greg. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. So it is a pleasure to have you here today. And so tell us, when did you actually start executing this program?
Okay, well, I went to the seminar in Fort Worth in the beginning of October. I stayed there through the weekend, and I returned on October 11th on Monday, and that's when I started the system again. I've done this system several years ago and had been very successful at it, but had kind of let it go to the wayside. And after going to the seminar in Fort Worth with 15 or 16 other of my associates, I got really motivated to get started and do it religiously again.
So you decided, you came back, and your first goal was to get the expired plan up and running. So tell us about the process you went through to get this set up. You have your basic.
So the process I went through was I kind of revamped some of my materials a little bit to get more of that Hobbs Herder feel. And basically, I just pulled out my list, started going through for sale by owners and expireds, and started plugging them into the system. And basically, the checklist that I have guides you through what to do. What I do is I come in Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I'll go through the system. I'll look for new expireds, and then I'll plug them in. And then, you know, the first piece that I'll send them is a brochure cover letter, which I got right off your website, and it goes with my brochure. So the first piece that they get comes in a 6x9 manila envelope, and I handwrite all of the addresses. I find that if you handwrite the addresses, people will tend to open your mail a lot more often. And these 6x9 pieces, it's something that I almost guarantee you everybody's going to open because it looks like something special in the mail.
So now,
go ahead.
How do you actually select the expired? I mean, are you?
Well, I go in and I go first of all by area, and then once I get the expireds, I'll print them all and I'll look at each one of them. If they're vacant, I check the tax record and make sure that there's an address on the tax record that's different from the address that's vacant, because I don't want my mail going to a vacant house. Then I'll pretty much rule out all builders, and then if I see a property that's been on the market for 400 plus days or just something ridiculous amount, I won't do that one either.
So how many do you typically find in an average day, or on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
In an average day, this morning before we started today, since last Friday, which was the last day that I did them, I had 15 in our market, and I narrowed it down, and after I did all my searches, I think I ended up with 7. But obviously, on the first day of each month, we'll get anywhere from 150 to 200 different ones.
Okay. So it varies a little bit on the date and when of the month and stuff like that?
Correct.
Do you have a number of expireds you're trying to do each week?
Yes, I do. Right now, I have probably about 130 in my system, and they're all at different stages, right? So somebody might be getting a brochure, someone might be getting a listing brochure, somebody might be getting an easy exit card, somebody might get an enlist with the best testimonial card, or a just sold card, or a just listed card. The idea is to get the high-end marketing pieces to them consistently and regularly, so that after about 2 weeks or 6 pieces, when I finally do make the phone call, they know who I am.
All right. So now tell me, logistically, how do you keep track of that? I mean, this seems to be where a lot of people struggle with this system, in that, how do you track that? Now, you do this all on paper, or are you...
It's all on paper, and what I do is, you saw the checklist on the screen. There's a little blank where you write in the date you sent the piece, and it's almost mindless. I used to have a $10 an hour assistant that took care of it for me, and in the future I plan on doing that again. But right now I have a small file box that sits on top of my desk, and it has each piece in chronological order. So all I do is, number one, make sure that the property hasn't been relisted. I go into my list, I flip to page 1, I say, okay, he's on the just listed card. I pull the just listed card out, I address it, throw it in the stack. I flip to the next one. Okay, well, that's a just listed. Okay, now we're at the market update letter. And so I just follow a very simple process that's easy to teach anybody to do, because at some point I'm going to be so busy I can't handle this anymore. You know, last Friday I went on an expired listing appointment. I had something going on that morning. I got the listing. I headed back to the office. I was all happy. I had some things to take care of, and I was about to run out the door, and I said, no, sit down and take care of your mail outs. And that was the picture you put up on the screen a little earlier. I've kind of got a little nickname for it, and I say I'm feeding the lion the Hobbs Herder way.
All right. That is so valuable. So why don't you walk us through the system? You start by mailing your brochure and the letter to an expired, and then what do you do next?
Okay, so then the next item I send is a 8.5 by 11 brochure. I don't know if I'm on the screen or not, am I?
You are.
Okay, so that's an 8.5 11 brochure, and it comes with a marketing commitment, is what I call it. It's kind of a letter I designed myself, and it says, hey, this is my commitment to you, rather than a plan. So the next piece they get is an 8.5 by 11 manila folder. Then after that, they get an easy exit postcard, which is right on your download site, and what that says is that they can relist with me with only a 24-hour commitment. Now, the reason I do that, when I get finally to the listing presentation, I take another one of the easy exit cards with me, and I say, look, you know, I know you've been in a contract with someone in the past, and to overcome the reluctance for you to sign with me, someone you don't know at all, I'd be willing to cancel this listing agreement with 24 hours notice. Then after an easy exit card, they get a just listed card, which is on a power card. Once again, it's another high-end professional marketing piece. You know, I always like to say we've got 4 seconds to impress them, from the mailbox to the trash can. So that's the next piece. Then they get a market update letter, which is a letter that I kind of created myself, and it says, hey, this is what's been going on in your market in the last 6 months, and it kind of rehashes that I sent them the easy exit and some other items. And I'll just go into the MLS and I'll print what's sold in the last 6 months and send it to them. And I find that people are always very, very interested in that letter. Then they get an expired follow-up letter, and that's a letter that says, okay, you've gotten my easy exit, you've gotten my market update, you've gotten my marketing commitment. I noticed that you have not put your home back out on the market yet. I hope you consider me as one of the professionals you'll interview when you're ready. Then after that, they get a just sold card. Once again, it's just consistency. I want them to see my marketing pieces, my sailing theme again. Now, right around this time is when I'll make the first phone call. And our MLS does not save the phone numbers once they expire. So I've subscribed to a company called the Red X, and that company gets me 99% of the phone numbers. So what I'll do is I'll come in the morning, I'll do my Wednesday mail outs, I'll do what I need to do for the rest of the day, and I dedicate 2 hours every Wednesday evening from 6 to 8. And I call people just randomly, and I introduce myself, and I immediately launch into, hey, I've mailed you several marketing pieces over the last couple of weeks, and the reason I'm doing that is I just want to show you how hard that I'm going after your business, because this is how hard I'm going to try and sell your home. And that really starts to get a conversation going. They don't just hang up on me, and they've already had several phone calls from other realtors who have already given up, right? 2 weeks have gone by. They're tired of all the realtors calling. Now there's a new one. Oh, you're the guy that's been mailing me all that stuff. Yeah, that's me. And just think about it. I've gotten your attention that way. Think of the things I can do for you to get your home sold. And then I'll just launch into various reasons of why. And then I'll say something like, well, I'm setting appointments for this weekend. I have a spot open at 9 and 11. Which one would you like? And I just set them up right there to say, give me an answer, 9 or 11. And I'll tell you, just from last Wednesday's phone calls, I signed 3 listing agreements. One of them did it over the phone. I just emailed it to them. Friday, I went to a listing appointment, walked out with the signatures, and this lady was very, very difficult on the phone. She used, obscenities and talking about her past realtor and on and on and on. And when I got to the listing appointment, there were other realtor materials on the table. She signed before I left. On Sunday, I went to another listing appointment, and at the very end of the conversation, I said, well, are you guys ready to move forward now? I've scheduled a photographer for Monday evening. And the husband looked at the wife and said, well, honey, do we need to think about this? And she said, no, let's sign right now. And after all that, he said, do you sail? I said, well, yeah, I'd sail. And he said, well, I had a boat, and we kept it for 12 years at Yacht Harbor Marina. And during that listing appointment, I had also mentioned that I spent a lot of money on marketing materials. And he said, I know. I'm a printer. I know what this stuff costs.
All right. So tell us a little bit about the frequency, because you're mailing out your brochure and the cover letter, and then how often do they get each one of these pieces?
I find that every 2 days is the most effective. So from the day it expires, I'll do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, about 10 pieces that go out. So they're going to get mail from me about 3 weeks. And then once you've captured their attention, right? You're mailing more pieces than they are used to getting. There's a couple other realtors in town that measure a huge, overwhelming package of materials on very cheap paper, not very colorful, not high-end marketing items that stand out. Time and time again, people say, you're the most consistent, most persistent realtor I have ever met, because they keep getting these pieces over and over and over again. I think it's great when people email me and ask me to stop mailing them pieces. That's when I put another one in the mail.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about this. You're basically mailing them very frequently, every couple of days, and you're sending high quality materials. Now, right now up on the screen, I have the very first letter that you're sending out with the brochure.
Right.
Now, do you personalize these? Do you put their name in it, or do you just put it like this, Dear Home Seller?
I take it right off your website. That's exactly what I send them. It doesn't matter if it's 1 seller or 2 sellers or male or female. It works.
Okay. So you've got the system down, and I want people to understand, I think so many people get bogged down with, gosh, I don't have a CRM set up, I need to get this into Top Producer, and they make it so complicated that they never actually get to executing it. You've got this very sophisticated 3x5 computer system that you're using, and I just want people to understand that, that's a great place to start. And now the one thing you've got though is you've got quality materials. You've got letterhead that looks good, that makes you look professional, your brochure that tells your story. And I think this is one of the things that people miss, is that quality makes such a huge difference here. It's that quality and consistency over time. Now, as you're calling and getting feedback, what are the things that your prospects are telling you or commenting about in your letters, your follow-up? What's that phone call actually like, a week into it, once they've gotten 5 or 6 of your pieces and they're starting to see you?
The phone call it's more of a warm call than a cold call, because when I call them, the first thing I'm asking them is, have you received all the marketing pieces that I've sent you? And more often than not, I will get people saying, like I said earlier, you are the most persistent, most consistent realtor we have ever met. It's more when I actually get in front of them where I get the feedback. For example, on October 11th, when I sent the first piece, I only sent 4 pieces, and a for sale by owner called me and said, I've been getting your marketing materials. I'd like for you to come over and talk to me about selling my home. I came over there, and she is in marketing, and she said to me that she got my first piece, and she said, well, this is nice. Let's see if he sends something else. She got another piece. Oh, well, okay, I got 2 pieces. I won't hear anything from him again. Boom, another piece. Boom, another piece. She called me after 4 pieces, and that house went on the market, 3 over full price offers in 48 hours. And just on another note, from your seminar in Fort Worth, I really like the idea of placing a Facebook ad and advertising a property within the same parameters of the listing you just took. The other day, I called her up just to update her on what was going on, and she said, Tony, you're not going to believe this. The school called. My son was homesick for the day. They wanted to know where he was. After we took care of all that business, the school said, hey, we saw your house for sale on Facebook. It looks great. So my response to her was that, well, who are you going to refer the next time you know someone that's selling a house? She said, oh, you, absolutely.
All right, that is great. So now they're starting to get these letters. Tell me a little bit about this marketing commitment letter. And
okay, the marketing commitment letter mirrors my listing brochure, right? And I'm holding it up to the screen right now. This is the 8.5 by 11 piece. And what we do here at Sky Realty is we'd like to do what we call a coming soon campaign. Other people are doing it in the nation, and what we find is that we like to create a little bit of enthusiasm and excitement before your home hits the market. And often in this market here, we can get your home sold before that happens. Now, if you can see there, when I go on a listing appointment, I tell them this is my commitment rather than my plan. And it's because it's my commitment to you. And if I don't live up to one of these items on this commitment, then you can exercise your easy exit listing agreement and we're done. The first part is communication, right? It takes a lot of communication between me and the seller to get their home sold. What I'll tell them is, I'm not here to put a sign in your yard and a lockbox on your door and you're never going to hear from me again. I implement your servicing system and tell them, I want you to keep this folder. You're going to need to put all the important documents in here that I mail to you. The reason I want you to hold these documents is when we get to the closing table, I want you to bring this with you so you can see what I did to earn the commission that I did with you. So the communication also is, once they have a showing, if I get in touch with that realtor within 2 or 3 hours, find out if there's any objections, get a hold of the seller, let them know, hey, they didn't like the paint cover. Will you paint it? Oh, absolutely, we'll paint it. Or they didn't like the tile in the kitchen. Are you willing to put different tile in? Absolutely, we'll do that. So I think that many realtors don't have that level of communication with their listings. And when they hear, they just got off 199 days with the previous realtor and they haven't heard from that realtor in 3 months, they're getting a promise from a guy that they don't even know, that they're not only going to get a piece of mail from me, they're going to get a phone call and they're going to get an email from me every Tuesday for the life of the listing. Then there's several other items on there We do a YouTube video. It's where we personally walk through the property, shoot the video with YouTube. I promise professional photos on every listing with twilight photos. It's an expensive package, but I find that it's very, very effective. I will take flyers with me of other properties that have the twilight photos and the other professional photos, and then I'll take a copy of their listing and go, let me guess, your realtor showed up with their own digital camera, didn't they? And they say, oh yeah, you're right, they did.
All right. So any other feedback or comments that you get from sellers about this listing commitment letter?
Well, what at the end of my presentation, after I've gone through all of this, they're just kind of just staring at me, kind of googly-eyed, because what we pride ourselves in here at Sky Realty is being a very internet-intensive company. And I talk about how Google crawls websites and how we try to get higher up in the natural search engine. And, you know, these are things that I've learned from my broker here that I'm just now regurgitating to the seller. And once they've heard all these things, it's a no-brainer. They're just like, well, you know, the guy before us didn't do any of this. And so they just, well, where do we sign? And it just makes the process a lot easier. You know, we'll do a property website. We'll do drive-by tech where they drive by and they text information. It comes back on the phone. I'll use my phone and I'll demonstrate for them in their house. I tell them I'm going to put a coming soon sign in your yard as soon as you sign this document, and on that sign is going to be a text writer talking about how your house just hit the market. Come and see it before it hits the MLS, because I want to tell them that I'm trying to freshen up their expired listing by making it appear as new because it's coming soon, and we ride all of the websites that our company uses for 7 to 10 days before we launch into the MLS. And then the syndicated websites pick everything up and come up higher in the search engine. And most people,
so now,
go ahead.
I was going to say, tell us about your power cards.
Okay, my power cards, they were the smaller size that I guess that y'all were promoting several years ago. And at the recent Fort Worth seminar, I decided to get the big ones, right? And what you see on that front image, I used to be an avid J24 sailor. That is an image of a regatta that we took first place in, and the photo boat was in front of us and took the picture. And I often get comments. I had one open house where I handed the lady my brochure, and I mailed her a power card, a blank power card, and I wrote, "Thank you for coming to the open house." Mailed it to her. By Wednesday of that evening, she said, Tony, I read your brochure. I sail, you sail. I lived in the Bahamas. You lived in the Bahamas. I think you're my realtor. And that's just one more affirmation of how this system really works and how all the things that you talk about in the seminar really are true. I set a dollar amount, the green light, red light philosophy, where I'm going to spend this many thousands of dollars until I get a return. Well, 4 days into it, I got a house, sold it 2 days later. That's already out the window. In just the last 20 days, I've picked up 5 listings totaling $1.7 million, all from Hobbs Herder, FSBO, and EXPIRED program.
All right. So now, you have your easy exit cards, your just listed, just solds. You have these all pre-printed so that they're ready to go.
Yes.
How often do you update your just listed, just solds, these types of things?
It's funny you asked that, because I very rarely update them. And in fact, there's other realtors in our office that want to do the same thing that may not have a just listed or a just sold. And I tell them, well, just use mine. And you can say, we sold this, or we just listed this. Now, I've been targeting some higher end properties, so I recently updated my just sold card to a more expensive property that I personally sold. That's a just listed card that's up on the screen right now that I sold back in May. And then my just sold card was about an $800,000 property that I wanted to have when I'm mailing to the $1 million expired listings.
And the point I want to make, Tony, is that so many agents get hung up on this, and they say, well, gosh, every time I take a new listing, do I need to update these cards? And once you have the basic cards in place, I mean, every year you can update them, but you don't need to go crazy updating them. Just keep them relatively current, and it'll work incredibly well for you. And the key is to make it as simple as possible to execute. And I really want to make sure that people understand that, because otherwise they make it too complex and they just forget about the little details. Now, you're mailing the just listed, just sold. These are going out every couple of days. Now, just combination of the letters, the power cards, and then you give them a market update. Now, in your letter that you're sending a market update with, what are you saying about the marketplace?
Okay, what I have found that homeowners really like to see is what's happening in their subdivision. So what I'll do is I'll take the last 6 months of actives, pendings, and solds. I'll print out a very basic form right out of the MLS, and then typically on the last page there's room for me to write a personal note. And what I'll write on that personal note is, look what's sold in your subdivision in the last 6 months. I can sell your home too! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. But the cover letter of that letter has all my graphics, it has my logo, it has my contact info, and it matches all my other marketing materials. And even 2 weeks ago when I made my phone calls, I love it when they're out of the city, right? When you get a listing from someone who doesn't even live here, number one, you don't even go to meet them. Number two, you don't even need to see the house. Well, I called a guy 2 Wednesdays ago, and he said, "Oh, yeah. I just got another one of your letters. I was looking at it yesterday. It was telling me, what it sold in our neighborhood. We just put some tenants in there, but I'm going to call my property manager tomorrow and see if I have an out so that you can sell my house." It was that easy. Another couple was on the expired program. They live in Houston. They have a waterfront home here on Lake Travis in Austin, Texas. And I mailed them several pieces. I got a hold of the wife, and she was so excited after we were talking. There were 2 other realtors in my office listening to the conversation. She said, "But my husband's the one you need to talk to." He called me that night, said, "You know what, Tony, I can't hear you very well. Why don't you just email me what you can do?" The next day, I emailed basically all my comments about my marketing commitment. He said, "Send me the listing agreement." I never even went to the house. I never met him in person.
All right. So now, one of the power cards that you've also created is this little power card that says, "Enlist with the best." And tell me, what was your thinking here, and what does this do for you?
Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Enlist with the Best is your download. What I do here is I take different testimonials from various folks that I've worked for in the past, and this piece, I want people to, number one, when they get it in the mail, they've already received at least 6 or 7 items from me. So they're going, "Oh, here's that guy again that has the sailboat on his marketing." When they flip it over, if they read, they're going to see, well, gosh, for Jeff and Michelle, he sold their $2.7 million house, got him a $1.1 million house. He sold 5 apartment complexes for Paul. He bought and sold Corey and Tasha's house. He helped me do my house for Peter and Jessica. So I want them to relate and think, well, gosh, if he helped all these people, then he can help me too. And once again, it's just one more piece of the professional looking high-end marketing pieces to impress them, and also to reinforce who I am as a realtor.
Okay. So now you go through this whole thing, and they're getting basically 11 or 12 pieces at the end of it. Now you follow up the final phone call. At the end of that final phone call, what is it that you're saying?
Okay, at the very end, what I'll typically do, and I've already reached out to them once by phone, I'll say, "Hey, this is Tony calling again. I just wanted to make sure you got my most recent letter. I know you're probably waiting until spring until you want to put your home on the market. Can I put you on a list to call you back in January?" And if they say yes, I take that out of my 3-ring notebook and I put it behind January. And I've already gotten 3 callbacks in January, 1 callback in February, 1 callback in April. and I almost haven't even gotten to this closure letter. Now, the other thing that happens about a week or two before the 90th day that they've been on the market, which is when their days on market goes back to 0, they're going to get another letter from me, and it's going to say 90 days across the top, and it's going to say within 2 weeks your home is going to have 0 days on the market. Now is the time to call me, to come to your home and start putting together your marketing so that we can be ready to start on your home right away when that 90th day hits. Then those folks are going to get another phone call from me within 4 or 5 days of that mailer.
So now, one of the things I want to find out, you get people at that last call that say, call me back in February, March. Between now and February, March, whenever you're calling them back, are you sending them things? How are you staying in touch with them?
They'll get periodic drip postcards, and these are cards that are generated by our office. Now, I also have blank cards where I'll write, just thinking about you, look forward to talking to you on January 1st. We spoke on October 17th. Just kind of setting them up and reminding them that they're going to get a phone call from me. And I think that, those calls are going to be very, very warm calls. That, we have spoken, you asked for me to call you, and here I am calling you.
And it's so important to remember that that's why you've got to stay in touch. You've got to stay consistently, and you don't have to do anything super impressive. But when people say, well, call me back in March, one of the things that I think so many agents do is they put a tickler to call them in March, but they don't stay in touch with them. And by the time March comes around, that person is either forgotten the connection, didn't really feel like, oh, they really didn't stay that consistently in touch with me. I must not have been that important to them. And by staying in touch consistently, that makes such a huge difference. And I think that will continue to pay huge dividends going forward. Now, let's talk a little bit about this, how this differs for the for sale by owner program versus the expired program. So
okay. Go ahead.
I was going to say, here's the for sale by owner checklist. How do you go about doing this?
Okay, the materials that you provide for a for sale by owner differ greatly from the expired program. The first letter talks about, hey, I noticed your home just went up on the market. I'd like to provide you with all the legal forms necessary to get your home sold if you do find a buyer. Also, I work with lots of professionals in the area, and I would like to be able to refer those people to you once you get a contract. And then I also include a copy of my marketing commitment to see that, well, if you do decide, selling homes is my full-time job, this is what I do. And what will precede that letter will be a copy of my brochure, a cover letter with that brochure. But they start getting these pieces once again. And some of the pieces carry over from the expired program, right? They'll get that listing folder again. I want them to, once in, get a very nice professional piece, see what kind of money I spend on my materials, what the quality of my marketing materials are. Then I'll send them an easy exit card. They don't know me. They might read that easy exit agreement and go, hey, this guy, if we sign a 3-month agreement with him, we really don't have to live up to that. For sale by owner I got a hold of last week, this was a big deal to him. He did not want to be obligated to somebody forever. And he, as a matter of fact, said, send me your listing agreement. I never met with him. I never even saw the house. So, go ahead.
I just say, tell me, how do you actually find the for sale by owners? And are there a lot of for sale by owners in your marketplace? Just give us a little background.
Okay, when I am out with prospective buyers and I see a for sale by owner sign, I ask that buyer, do you mind if I just pull over real quick and write that address down? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, no, go right ahead. They're impressed that I'm trying to solicit business. Now, another form of acquiring FSBOs, I mentioned it earlier, is the Red X. And it's a subscription that you can pay about $70 a month. And on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I come in and I download new for sale by owners. And what they do is they search the local newspaper, they search local internet sites, and they provide those for sale by owners to me. Now, a lot of times they'll come without an address. So I'll make a phone call and I'll say, hey, my name is Tony. I'm a realtor with Sky Realty. I noticed you had your house for sale. Is it still available? Oh, yeah, it's still available. I asked, well, what's the address? I'd like to take a look from the outside. I'll jot the address down. Then I'll plug them into the FSBO system immediately. And what I found is if you can land a for sale by owner, it's a gold mine, right? Because that property has not been on the market yet. People have not seen it yet. So I think that, you know, when I get a for sale by owner listing, I get a little bit more excited than I do with an expired listing. But I've had expireds where I've come out, taken the professional photos, done all the marketing that I do, and get a contract within a week.
Well, I mean, and to me, you know, it's partly the marketing, partly what you're doing, partly, you know, how you do things in a variety of ways. But it's so powerful once you're able to control the inventory, because you can price it right, you can get things sold effectively. Now, as you're working with for sale by owners, what other types of experiences have you had when you're starting to follow up and now you make a phone call after they've gotten a variety of your marketing materials? What kind of feedback do you get from the for sale by owners?
Well, you'll get two types of responses. One is the for sale by owner, and hold that letter on the screen. I want to talk about that one in just a second. But you'll get the for sale by owner that doesn't want solicitors, right? They don't even want to talk to you. Well, I love those because those are the ones that I'm going to keep sending more and more and more pieces to. More than 80% of all for sale by owners are going to end up eventually listing with a realtor. That person's going to know that I called them, and even after I called them, I continued to mail them items. Now, you're going to get the other for sale by owner that says, you know, I've been getting your pieces in the mail. They look really professional. I think I'm ready to talk to somebody. When can you come see my house? And then they'll say, but I'm not ready to list just yet. And I love that because those are the ones that are going to list the day you see them. The FSBO that I got just a couple weeks ago, that was her line. She said, I don't want to list yet, but come see my home. And I walked out of there with a signed listing agreement. Photographer's there the next day, sign in the yard the 2 days after that, contract by that weekend. And then we went ahead and held an open house. There were 15 groups that came through, and I completely implemented your open house system from Fort Worth, where get the clipboards, get the questionnaires printed out right off your website, and offer something of value and tell them, fill these out completely, you'll be entered in the drawing to win this. You know, 14 out of 15 people got their information to me. I'm talking phone number, address, email. In the past, that was a very difficult thing to do. And most recently, we've designed a video and have saved it on our YouTube channel to where when someone leaves your open house, you can shoot them a link to YouTube, and all of a sudden they're clicking on a video of me saying, hey, thanks for coming by our open house today. I want you to know that I'm going to set you up on a hot sheet tonight. It explains what a hot sheet is. And then you're going to get a copy of my personal brochure in the mail, and I'm going to mail you another piece that talks about people that have been happy with my service in the past. And they get on a whole nother mailing system for buyers.
All right. So now what did you want to say about this letter?
Okay, this seller's disclosure notice, I think it's something I made up. I can't remember if I got it from you guys or not, but I always find that when you're in a listing with someone who's not really experienced about selling homes, that the seller's disclosure notice confuses them. And then lots of sellers are very wary about it. So in Texas, you have to complete a seller's disclosure notice that lets the potential buyer know what may or may not be wrong with your home, or what's happened to it in the past. So I like to send them this letter with a copy of the seller's disclosure notice to, number one, demonstrate to them again, I'm just being helpful. I want you to have, you know, the professional advice you need to get your home sold. And by the way, when you sell your home, you're going to have to complete this document. 9 times out of 10, they don't know about the document, number one, and then number two, they need help filling it out.
I think that makes such a huge impact. I found that when they see that, especially, like the California disclosure notice is very intimidating. I can't say I've seen the Texas one, but the California one is pretty impressive, and it makes people, oh my goodness, I've got to disclose all this information. And I found that does motivate people to say, gosh, maybe I need to think this through a little bit more effectively.
Yeah, maybe I've bitten off a little bit more than I can chew by selling this on my own. I need a professional to help me.
And then you're using the same just listed, just sold from that you're using with the expired program. And to me, there's a few different pieces, but one of the things that I want you to realize is that our listeners realize is that once you have the system set up, it's easy to do this with expireds, for sale by owners. Even if you don't have a lot of for sale by owners in your area, if you follow up with everyone, you get a subscription to RedX or some of the other for sale by owner services. This will make it so effective. Now, one of the things that I found is that so many people, when you go to what I call the traditional for sale by owner calls or expired calls, where you're trying to go for a close in that call or go for an appointment, you get a lot of rejection. And when you're talking to these people, and not everybody's going to be thrilled that you're following up, but tell me, does it feel like you're getting a lot of rejection from people?
Well, I like to say, Greg, that once I get through all those no's, I'm going to get a yes. And, it's funny, the first night that I sat down to do this, the very first call that I did, the guy said, take me off your call list now. Oh, okay, I'll take you off the call list. But then I realized, he saw the caller ID. He realized that I was a realtor calling, and he'd been inundated with other realtor calls. So there's ways that you can make calls where your caller ID doesn't pop up, but you have to understand that you're going to get a lot of rejections. But I made 15 phone calls last Wednesday night and walked away with 3 signed listing agreements. And when I did this before years ago, I was very, very successful when I made those phone calls. After I went to your seminar last November in Houston, I came back and I half-heartedly implemented the system again. I hated making the phone calls, so I never made those calls. And you know what? I never got a listing from it. Well, 3 Wednesdays ago, I called my broker. I had just dropped my kid off at swim practice miles away from the office, and I'm on my way, and I called him. I said, God, Curtis, I'm on my way into the office. I dread doing this. But as soon as I got here, I got results. And once I get on the phone and I even capture someone's attention for a minute without them not wanting to talk to me, I get excited. And so the next phone call is easier, and then the next phone call is easier, and it just becomes natural. And the things that you say just seem to just come out naturally. And even if it's not natural, once you start making the calls, you'll figure it out. And when you get that first person, you get that first listing appointment, it'll back up why you're doing all this. And it works. If I'd have been doing this all year, I'd be in a different spot from where I am now, that's for sure.
And one of the things that I want people to understand is that when you're making the follow-up calls, yes, there's going to be some rejection, but by and large, because you've been mailing them things, they've been seeing you, they're going to still treat you much differently and much more professionally than just another realtor. And that's
they almost feel guilty if they don't talk to you.
I love that. I think that's such a great understanding of this. So just to summarize again, why don't you tell us exactly the results you've gotten from this program? You started again in what month and started this program?
Okay, the beginning of October was the seminar. I came back to the office October 11th on Monday. I started mailing immediately, but I don't make phone calls for 2 weeks. So about October 25th, I started calling. And since then, I've gotten 5 listings totaling $1.7 million. One of them is $330,000. We got a $340,000 contract on it. it's going to close any day now, which more than pays for any of the investment that I've made. And, you know, here is just a copy of, you know, I didn't even worry about doing listing boards anymore just because I wasn't handling that many listings. But you can see now, I've got 6 of them on the board now, and I'm not stopping until the rest of that board is full.
All right. So now I did love what you did with this little video here. So one of the things I think you sort of talked about this, but when people come to your open house, you give them your brochure, the follow-up materials and stuff like that. How do you actually get them this video?
Okay, with the system that you taught us at the seminar to acquire their information, and I know at the seminar you said used, you know, a piece, one of your special reports. Well, what I did is I just bought a $50 gift certificate to a local restaurant. And I tell them, and I have the gift certificate on display with a big piece of paper saying raffle, you know, we're going to raffle it off at the end. So I'm getting their email addresses. Once they leave the open house, provided I'm not dealing with someone else, I'll get on my smartphone, attach this link, and email them the link. And so they're driving down the road, and they're looking on their smartphone, bam, they've already gotten an email from me, and they're watching this video.
All right. And basically in this video, what do you say?
Okay, in this video I say, hi, this is Tony Slowik. We just met at the open house. I wanted to thank you very much for coming. It was a pleasure meeting you. I just want you to know that I'm going to go home this evening, and I'm going to set you up on a hot sheet. And what a hot sheet is, it's a system used, it's a software that is with the multiple listing service here that I pay for, that sends you homes that I think are within the parameters of what you're looking for. So as soon as a realtor inputs a new listing, it's going to be emailed to you so you have the most current data. Then I'm going to mail to you a copy of my personal brochure. It tells you a little bit about how I do business and a little bit about me personally. After that, I'm going to send you a testimonial of some of my past clients that were very, very happy with the services I provided them. And then at the very end, I say, my job is to make you a raving fan.
All right. So, I mean, one of the things that I love about this is that it's working together in this system. Now, one of the things that sometimes people do, they say, well, Greg, they came to the open house, and I gave them a copy of my brochure there, and now I'm promising sending one in the mail. Do you ever get people to say, well, gosh, you've given me your brochure before, don't send me another copy?
Greg, I lost your audio there for a second.
Okay, so
you're back now. Go ahead, repeat it.
So at an open house, sometimes people will come in and you'll give them your copy of your personal brochure. Now in your video, you're promising to send them another brochure. Do you ever get concerned that people are getting too many of your brochures?
Absolutely not. I will send them another one, and I want them to have another copy. If they just took the copy that was at the open house and threw it in their glove compartment or threw it away at McDonald's when they took the kids for lunch afterwards, I want them to have another one. I want them to see another marketing piece. I use the brochures as much as possible. You know, at the car wash over the weekend, I met a guy, oh, I just moved here from Chicago. I work for a securities firm. Oh, have you bought a house yet? Oh, no, we're renting. I said, just a minute. I've got a brochure in my glove compartment. Let me go get it for you. And I walked back, handed him the brochure, handed him my business card, and got his contact info. So, no, I want anybody who comes through the open house to get as many pieces from me as possible. The thing is, I want them to see that I'm following up.
All right, so a couple of quick things here. First of all, I want to open it up to questions about anything that people have, and I would love to get the questions. I see a question from Elena Jackson, and it says, can we get a copy of the expired mail checkout checklist? And that's on the download site. So if you go to the download site, you'll find one there. He's modified it a little bit for his marketplace, but the basic concept is there. Also, Brandy wants you to show your binder where you keep it all. So can you physically show us that?
Yeah. Okay. So here is the binder right here. right? And you can see how many documents are in the middle. Can you see that?
Yes.
That's just the expireds right there. And then the FSBOs is obviously much smaller, right? It says FSBOs right there, very simple, very basic program, but it has a lot less. You can see that. Now, and these items, they sit on top of my desk next to a box, a plastic box that has files in it with the title of each mailer, which corresponds to the checklist. So all I do, number one, make sure it hasn't been relisted. I don't want to waste my materials or stamps or envelopes. Look at what item's next, pull it out, stick it in an envelope, handwrite the address. I think that is very, very important. I have a stamp that has my name and my address and company on it. I don't even want that there. In fact, after they get 3 or 4 pieces and a piece does not come back to me, I don't even put my name on the return address because I don't want them to see it's me. I want them to open it and go, oh my God, this guy sent me another piece.
All right. And I got a question here from Anna Sherry, and it says, are these letters available on the website or Exact? And they are available on both. So the expired program, the Force Elevator program, is in Exact Contact for those of you that are using Exact. It's also on the download site. All right. So if you've got any other questions for Tony, please feel free to type them in here, and we'd love to get some feedback from Tony. Also, I would love your feedback about this webinar. I am sure Tony would like your feedback as well. And you can mail me those comments, email me at greg.herder@hobbsherder.com. Also, I would love to get your feedback, comments on Facebook, Twitter, those types of things. So other questions that you have for Tony, feel free to type them in, give us feedback. And Tony, what is your goals for your real estate career over the next year?
I want to double my production to 12 million. That's my goal for next year.
And tell us, what is your average sales price there in Austin?
My average sales price is probably about $220,000.
Okay, so 12 million, that's quite a few houses.
It is, but I've started to get some of the higher end market properties that I think will make that goal a little bit easier. But I can tell you right now, 1.7 million listings in 3 weeks. If I keep this up, I don't foresee obtaining my goal being too much of a problem. It'll be a lot of work, but I don't think it'll be a problem reaching that goal.
And I have a feeling that it's a lot more fun to have too much business than not enough business.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think one of the things that's been very instrumental in motivating me to get going this time around is I have 15 other realtors in my office that have signed up with your program that are chomping at the bit to get their materials. And I like to be able to report back to them every Friday the successes that I've had so that when they get their materials, they can start coming back on Fridays and talking about the successes they've had. And it just motivates me to keep going instead of being the only guy here doing it.
Well, and I love what's going on in Sky Realty right now. I would, I don't know if you would mind, but why don't you tell us a little bit about what is happening in Sky and how you're sort of building this group of people that are really creating a marketing-driven real estate business?
Sure. Like I mentioned earlier, about 16 of us went to the Fort Worth seminar, and every single person signed up to one degree or other with your company. And what we did is we all decided to have an accountability group, right? Number one, we all have an email list that we're all on right now. And every Friday morning at 10 o'clock, we meet and we discuss, hey, did you get your interview? What was your interview like? Did they give you a sample slogan? Where are you with your marketing? And then this past Friday, our broker and some of the other realtors in the group came up with an idea to start recording these YouTube videos, right? YouTube, we think, is, we concur with what you're doing. We think that it is the next thing and that everybody needs to be doing it. What we found, though, is we can do the videos, but the technical part, not everybody's real comfortable with. So we filmed a bunch of videos, And then we had someone in our office download them all and produce them all. And now 15 people in our office have introductory YouTube videos, open house YouTube videos, and those types of things. And then one of the other things that we'll do at that meeting, and it's kind of funny, but they're like, oh God, here comes Tony again. But I'll tell them, hey, guess what happened this week? You know, I've had phone calls on Wednesday night. I've got a listing appointment here. I've got a listing appointment here. Well, next Friday I get to come back and say, well, guess what? I got this listing. I got that listing. And this Wednesday when I come in, you know, I have to get more leads because I've already run through all the hot leads and listing appointments. So this coming Friday, I'll be able to go with them and go over even more that happened. And then as they get their materials in, we're there to support each other to implement your different systems. One of the first things we're going to do is mail out the letter, I think it's letter number 5 in your brochure letters, where we mail it out to our database with a few copies of the brochure saying, I just want to let you know I've started to market myself in a different way. It's personal marketing. We'd like to appeal to you personally. Would you be interested in using some of these brochures to give to your friends, to refer? So we're all very, very excited to start doing that system and see how that works out for us.
All right. That is great. So to me, it's like, I think that you guys are on a trajectory. I think a year from now, as a collective group, you are going to have a huge dominant market share, have a lot of fun, and that's always great to see. So I want to, first of all, thank you very much for joining us here and sharing your insights and things that you're doing. I know everybody online will get great value from that, and I appreciate all of your effort, and I just want to wish you great success going forward, and I know it's going to be an absolutely incredible year for you. So thank you very much for being here today, and we will look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you for having me, Greg.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll look forward next month. Make sure you go to HH Calls, get signed up, and it's going to be our last call of the year. So we're going to do a little year reviews, get you looking forward, and talk about how to make 2014 your best year ever. It's going to be a great call, so make sure you get signed up for it. We'll see you there. And if anybody's coming to Vegas in a couple of weeks, we'll look forward to seeing you there. And make sure you go out there and market every single day and keep making progress. Thank you guys for being here, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye, everybody.